So if you were sticking around for from the Kubernetes talk, containers are so like February 2018, right? So now we're going to start talking about functions. All right. So who's familiar with like Lambda, right? Okay, cool. Who's familiar with OpenFaaS or heard OpenFaaS before? All right, cool. Even better. So this is going to be looking at actually creating our first function and how you get started using OpenFaaS, right? So it's a pretty cool project that I'll talk about here in a second. For anybody that's new and wasn't here, I'll give you a little bit of rundown again about who I am. Kendrick Coelman, I'm an open source technical product manager here at VMware, really heavily invested into the Kubernetes community itself. And I'm a reformed sysadmin and virtualization junkie. I was very heavily invested into the vSphere ecosystem. So my old blog at kendrickcoelman.com had a lot of things on vSphere networking, vCloud Director. Now I'm starting to use it to talk about some of the things we're doing with inside of open source at VMware too. So go and check that out. I kind of lost the path of doing vSphere admin stuff as well, so I started getting into development. And you can go to GitHub, and Col2 is where some of my old projects are. I got some apps that are still out there and stuff like that too. For anybody that is a fan of brown water and bourbon whiskey, I also run the #1 bourbon podcast on iTunes called Bourbon Pursuit. So feel free to go and check that out, and you can learn more about good bourbon, right? Maybe after this we'll go get a drink, who knows? So we start looking at the shift of how developers are actually creating their applications, right? And really serverless is just an architectural pattern of how things have been moving. So if we rewind back a few years, we had the monolith, right? We had this application or applications that were all running with inside of bare metal. And then the evolution of virtual machines started coming out. And I don't really call this like microservice. I call this like micro app segmentation, right? Because instead of just having all your apps built on one server, now we've got a virtual machine and every app can have their own, right? So we got these dedicated apps that are going to each one of these. Now with the evolution of containers, of course we can lift and ship some of these applications and be able to push them into containers. But we also have new functionalities that can actually start happening, and that's where we start getting into functions, right? Essentially being able to say, we just got these one-off things, they run really quickly one time and then they're gone, right? The ephemeral nature of containers allows us to be able to do that, so it's really, really cool. And again, this was all popularized by AWS and Lambda, and that was really the only true serverless option we had at the time. But with the rise of Docker and containers and everything like that, people have started building more stuff on top of it. So what is a function? Anybody write code in here? A little bit of code? Okay, so you know what a function is, right? It's basically, it looks like this. It's got a few lines in it, right? It does just a little bit of work, right? You're not going to have a whole heap of code built inside the function, right? You want to kind of segment this out and call other functions to be able to do whatever it is, right? So it's a short-lived, single-purpose, no-state thing, and essentially you have some sort of input, and it gives you an output. Right? It could be a string, it could be an integer, it could be a YAML file, whatever it is. Like that function just has to return something or do something, right? That's all a function is, and it just runs really, really quickly. And the good thing about what you can do with functions is that they can scale very, very easily because it's this stateless architecture of what it's all built on top of as well. So OpenFaaS is a project that is started by Alex Ellis, based over in the UK, and he really got the highlight of this when he debuted it at DockerCon a few years ago. And what it was is a way to be able to build functions on top of utilizing Docker containers. Since then, it's sort of progressed, and now it utilizes Kubernetes as that overarching mechanism, right? And this is, he's now an employee at VMware, so it is a VMware-sponsored open source project, right? And we've actually just hired another person to help on it as well. So it's very, very healthy. It's got a great, vibrant community around it as well. If you're interested in actually joining it, there is a Slack community you can join and kind of get in touch with a lot of the developers that are actually building this at the same exact time. But the other thing is here is that it has multiple types of code options that you can use in it. We're going to be showing utilizing a little bit of Golang today. You can use Ruby, you can use Node, you got Java. One of the other cool things is that you can actually use a Docker file, right? So if you have a Docker file that you've created for some application, you can turn that into a function by just utilizing that Docker file as well. When I say that it runs on top of Kubernetes, it also does Docker Swarm. Kubernetes is really the future of where it's looking to go, though. So you can run this on your on-premise VMware Kubernetes environment. You can run it on VKE that's running inside of AWS. You can run it on top of any other sort of Kubernetes environment, right? So you can take it wherever it wants to go. And the way that it's all built is utilizing some of the autoscalers within inside of Kubernetes as well. So it knows when a particular service is getting a little bit stretched or a little bit thin. It can actually scale itself out to be able to make sure that it can push in more workers, or make sure that it can scale out your function to multiple replicas as well if it keeps getting hit too many times. So it's a really cool function to be able to do that as well. So a little bit more about the growth of it and kind of where it's been. It was originally developed by developers for developers. So there's a strong community that's behind it. Now with VMware as a sponsored project, it does have an industry backing behind it. And it's all based upon the users as well. So here's some of the community that's been involved. You can go on GitHub, check it out. This is an old stat, so I'm sure there's a lot more stars now, more contributors, of course, a lot of commits that are going into it every single day. So again, there's some more information just about it. If you want to go and check it out, it's all on OpenFaaS's website. And there's Alex down there in the bottom right-hand corner. That's the creator of OpenFaaS as well. So how does it work? Who here watches Silicon Valley? Okay. Anybody remember that app that Jin Yang made? That not a hot dog, right? It's kind of like that, right? It's something where you would just say, I needed to do one thing, right? Take an image, do a picture, it runs a function, and it says, all right, well, it's not a hot dog, right? Whatever it is. But then you have to kind of build on top of that, build more functions that call other functions, and you have to figure out, well, does this look like a hot dog, right? So, very rudimentary way to be able to say it works, but the installation is actually very, very simple. So, there's actually only 3 things you have to do. The first 3 are actually just setting up Helm and setting up Tiller, which is the process of what actually helps it. So the first 3 we're just setting up Helm with inside of our Kubernetes system here. And then the next 3, what I'm going to be able to do is I'm creating some namespaces. The namespaces are where our functions are going to live. It's also, there's a separate namespace of where your OpenFaaS service pods are deployed as well. So what we do is we add in the Helm repo right here, and then we say, go ahead, update and upgrade OpenFaaS. Right, so very, very easy to get going. It's going to automatically deploy it, get up and running. When you're utilizing PKS, I did put down here 2 extra flags. So you've got set service type load balancer, and you do that with inside of PKS because we want to be able to utilize NSXT's load balancing capabilities, right? So you set this type of service to load balance to be able to do that. If you don't do that and you're running it on any other type of cloud or any other type of environment, you remove that, it utilizes Kubernetes node port. And node port essentially just says, I'm going to create some random port and I'm going to access it through the Kubernetes master IP. Right? So pretty simple. Also, we set the security context to false in this, and that's because OpenFaaS is assuming that you're utilizing role-based access control with inside of Kubernetes. PKS uses token-based authentication, so we get to set the security context to false here. So just a quick diagram of what this does look like. So we have our ingress load balancer, or our node port, whichever you're deploying with. It hits our API gateway, which is also the UI. It's going to talk to the OpenFaaS operator, and it's going to start deploying our functions as individual pods. Prometheus is also packaged in with this, so you get out-of-the-box monitoring, right? That's already set up and ready to go for it too. So here's, like I said, very, very simple way to be able to look at this. So we've got building on top of Kubernetes, we've got HTTPS authentication built into it. It uses basic auth. You've got it's highly available because it is built on top of Kubernetes. It has auto scaling built into it as well. You do have network policies that you can provision through PKS or through whatever type of third-party networking you're using inside of there as well. And it can be integrated into your CI/CD workflow. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and let's hit the demo here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my a Golang project real quick. And the way that you have to set this up by utilizing your paths with inside a Go is a little bit different. So if I look inside of here, I can see that I'm sort of in my Go path right now, and I create a functions directory. So I'm going to go ahead and change into functions, and I'm going to create a new one. We'll just call it Yogo. You only go once, right? So let's go ahead and change into that. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to utilize the FaaS CLI. This is something that is cross-platform compatible that you can install anywhere. And we're going to say, I think it was just new, and then I'm going to say Lang, I'm going to say Go, and I'm going to call it Yogo. Now what this is going to do is it's going to go ahead and grab some templates from GitHub, and it's going to go ahead and provision it. So we can see that we've got our stack file built into here. Let's go ahead and we will open this up. So like I said, it's essentially scaffolding, right? That's what it is. Let me go ahead and blow this up for us as well so we can see it. If I can get back to it here. All right. Can y'all see that? Is that okay? All right. So this is essentially, it's a scaffolding that's built for us. It's very easy to be able to get into it. We can see that the package is there. And I'm just going to manipulate the string real quick. But that function in there essentially just, it's the handler. And with inside there, it's going to say, what am I getting or what am I accepting? I'm accepting a byte string. And I'm going ahead and going to pass that into the function in itself. Of course, you can change that to be integer or whatever it is that you want to be able to do. And I'm going to return this, right? So let's go ahead and let's do a, we'll say, let's do a, I'm trying to think what I want to do here real quick. We'll just call it C, and we're going to say it's a type of string here. Welcome to VMworld. All right, so within here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to pass that, and then, and I'll say we want to do %v here. Just have C. All right. Get rid of that. All right, so cool. So now the next thing what we want to do is we want to actually build our function. And when we do this, what we are doing is we are going to essentially create a Docker image. So what it's doing is it's going to start utilizing the Golang container here, and it's going to start building this, right? At the very end of it, we're going to have a, actually, you know what? There's something I forgot to do in here, so I'm going to have to rebuild this. So if I go back in here, one of the things that I forgot to do is I've got to go into my YAML here. So what this is doing is saying that, well, where's my provider? Where do I want to send it to? I'm going to show here, this is what the OpenFaaS portal looks like. Whoops. So let's go ahead and paste this in here. So that's where I'm going to deploy it to. And we can see that our handler, but their image that I want to do is I'm going to, let's see, okay, tool Yogo, and then 001. Because what I'm going to do essentially is create this image, and I want to push it to Docker Hub, right? So let's come over here, we'll build it again. All right, and so we can see that it's now tagged. We can see our Docker images. So we can see there's k equal to Yogo. And if we do FaaS CLI push -f yogo.yaml. So what it's doing, it's now pushing to my particular Docker hub right here. So let me go and bring that up real quick. Real quick was an understatement. So there we go. So there's Yogo. We can see it right there. It's been created, right? So it's just pushed a few seconds ago. All right. So now that it's up, I can actually deploy it to my my OpenFaaS server that's running over here as well. So I can say, you should be able to see here. So FaaS CLI, and we're going to say deploy-f go.yaml. So we can see that it's now gone. We come over here to our OpenFaaS portal. There it is. We can see that it's still building the container right now. And we'll get a ready server here in a second. So, okay, cool. So now we can invoke it. We can see Robert, say Robert, we're right here. We'll invoke it. Welcome to VMworld, right? So pretty simple of actually just building our first function, accepting a string, and pushing something out, right? So very, very easy to do. Just another thing I want to kind of show you before we start wrapping this up is that we have the ability to do, essentially there's a store in here as well. So you have a function store that's built into OpenFaaS. So there's actually a pretty cool one called Have I Been Owned? And we can say that we can just take it, we can deploy it. And that's going to deploy into our Kubernetes cluster right here. And what this is doing is actually talking to the Have I Been Owned API, and it's going to invoke something. So we'll say something that's like a pretty easy password, like password 123. If I can type password correctly. Like how many databases is this found in, right? So 21,481 vulnerabilities of this password actually being found somewhere, right? Versus something, I don't know, we can just do something crazy, right? Versus not being found, right? So very simple of actually being able to start saying I can deploy and I can utilize that too. How much time do we have left? 11 minutes. Okay, cool. So I'll show you one more here real quick. So the other thing about OpenFaaS is that we can utilize Kubernetes secrets too. So this is going to be sort of a science experiment here. So I've created a functionless service, and what this is going to do is it's going to count your repos that you have on GitHub, right? And since I need to be able to hit the GitHub API, I need to utilize a secret or a token. So the first thing I'm going to do is steal a little bit of my own code right here. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to generate a new token for me real quick, if I can remember my password. All right, so I'm going to regenerate the token. So don't go off stealing this right here. So I'm going to go over here to my Kubernetes cluster that I have up spin up here, and I'm going to say that my value is going to be equal to that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my Kubernetes secret right here. All right, so that secret's been created. What it's going to do is it's going to take that particular GitHub token. It's going to base 64 encode it into Kubernetes as well. All right, so now that I have that, I'm going to swing back over here. I'm going to go into my GitHub repo count function. I'm going to bring this up so you can just kind of see what's going on here as well. So this one's already been pushed. It's already up and running. Actually, what I need to do is probably just change that to, actually I'll change the gateway here in a second so you can see how you can manipulate the FaaS CLI to be able to do that. The handler here, let me take this down so we can see it all. So we've got two different functions that are built into here. But what it's doing is I'm creating a struct that I'm taking to actually produce a JSON output. From here, this is how I'm getting my API secret. This is actually a way of how I'm talking to Kubernetes to get that particular secret as well. And then here's the function handler, right? So I'm essentially taking my input, I'm getting the secret, doing a little bit of the GitHub magic to be able to essentially create an OAuth-based token. And then for here, I've just got a loop that will essentially start going through. It's going to look at that username. It's going to look at the first 20, count them, go to the next page, 20, count them, and just keep going because of the way that the GitHub API works. You have to essentially do it like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to marshal it back into a JSON output here. All right, so with that, let me come over here to this here, and we will do FaaS CLI deploy-f. Oh, the other thing that I also didn't mention is that the file name is here. I don't have it called GitHub repo count.yaml. It's just stack. So when you utilize stack, you actually don't need to pass that F flag in there. So I can just say fast CLI deploy, and I can specify my gateway here. So when I come over here to my gateway, I can do this, and now it's been deployed. Sometimes. There we go. So we can see that it's building right now. And it's ready. So who here's got a GitHub ID I can use? Go for it. What is it? TW IM PR INE. Twin Prime. So you've got 17 GitHub repos out there, right? So pretty cool little way of being able to just utilize Kubernetes Secrets to be able to have your API access token in there for, I mean, essentially any API you're going to hit today, you kind of have to have some sort of secret asset, or sorry, access token to be able to do it. And utilizing Kubernetes Secrets, you can make sure that it's still base64 encoded and it's also hashed inside of there as well. So with that, that's the demo. If you have any questions, I can take them now. If not, thank you all very much for your time. Yeah. So.
A couple questions. One, with the secrets, is it compatible with things maybe like Vault or Swarm secrets?
So the question was, are Kubernetes Secrets compatible with Vault or Swarm or anything like that? I honestly have no idea. I'm pretty sure that's something that the Kubernetes community is still working on, because I've seen the rumors of stuff being able to use Vault with Kubernetes Secrets, but I don't know where it is in the process. So.
I meant for OpenFaaS having compatibility with
Does OpenFaaS have compatibility with it? Honestly, I don't know. That's a pretty good question. I haven't really looked into it. So join the Slack community. We can find out together.
If anybody else has a question, I don't mind.
No, that's okay. Keep going.
The other question I had was, let's say you have you got a Spring Boot service, takes forever to boot up. You guys does OpenFaaS by default keep some running, just so that you have the services available to answer it, or is it pretty much just spinning up on it?
Yeah, so as you can see, it's ready right now. So essentially, I've got one pod replica spinning. It's up and running all the time, right? And so it's just waiting for something to get hit, right? It's not the same as Lambda, where it says I'm going to create it as it's getting called or something like that. So it is up and ready, and it's functioning all times, right? Because you're running this in your own environment, so there's really not a tax or penalty that you have to worry about the costs of running that function, right? So.
Has there been any discussion around making it so where it will spin it down, and if it gets a request, spins up, and it'll stay up for 45 minutes or anything?
So repeat the question one more time so I can.
Has there been any discussion around maybe doing a Lambda-like approach where it'll shut down, and you get another call, it'll warm up and stay up for a little while?
Yeah. So the question is there going to be an approach to be more like Lambda, where it essentially it'll spin down the container or the services and then bring them back up when they're called? I don't know the roadmap of where Alex has it going. So again, another great question for him that he's really quick to answer in the community. So you can always go there and ask. So, yep. All right. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.